to your original answers where it says after the video. And then I'll give you a chance to discuss with your partners before we share out in class. About 30 seconds.
What's a premature baby?
Okay, so please go ahead and now discuss with the person sitting next to you your answers to the 3 questions before we share out. Okay, make sure you're prepared with an answer because I'm going to call people randomly. If I can hear talking now, that's okay. You already know that. Okay. What about you two? What do we think about what is premature?
A premature baby born is born
Before the due date? Okay, good. And what'd you put the first in?
not yet ready or
Same thing.
then
How about you two?
what are some of the complications a premature baby might face? I put
Before it's done.
neural or unfortunately
Before it's fully developed. They like using it.
what?
Oh crap.
One month, is that what they said in the video? Whoa. Make sure you listen when we have the discussion, okay? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if I could please call your attention back up front in 3, 2, 1. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go over these questions based on the video, based on your discussions that you just had in your groups. So Caesar, what can we say a premature baby is? When the baby is born before it's fully developed. Good. So again, keep that in mind when we talk about how long it actually takes to develop a baby and what's developing during each stage. Okay, going on to the second question. What are some of the complications a premature baby might face? Ruby.
I thought that they sometimes have like problems with their lungs or like physical problems.
Good. So maybe trouble breathing because their lungs are not fully developed, right? So that's why we saw in the video the babies were hooked up to the machine, right? Because they weren't able to breathe well. Luis, did you get anything else about complications? So maybe long-term damage, like some certain birth defects, right? Absolutely. Okay, is there anyone else? I'll take any volunteers now this time that heard listen to any of the complications that might occur? Yeah.
Not at the correct weight.
Okay, so
Underweight.
low birth weight. Okay. Low birth weight. Okay, and that could cause all sorts of different problems, right? Yeah.
Heart problems.
Okay, definitely heart problems. Again, as we're going through each stage, we're going to find out, well, when's the heart developing? When are the lungs developing? Yeah. What's that? Could even be death, right, if it's too soon. So that, I'm glad you brought that up. That leads us right into the next question about what week or month do we think that the babies would be able to survive? Raul, what did you put? 24 weeks, right? The doctor on there said between about 24 to 28 weeks, the baby has how much of a chance of surviving? 50-50, right? And then if it's after that, the percent chance of survival is going to increase from there. And so again, that is our main essential question. At what week can a baby be born prematurely and still survive? So that's going back to also our objective, because remember, we're going to start talking about the different stages of development and what's developing during each stage. So that will help us determine why and how they can only survive at these certain ages. Okay? So if you guys could please, we're gonna transition into the notes. If you could please turn your packet to the 4th page, I believe. The chart that looks like this. Now there are gonna be 13 stages we're gonna go over. That's a lot, a little overwhelming. A little overwhelming. So what we'll do is we'll do 6 of the stages first. We'll stop, we'll do a little bit of processing and practice, and we'll discuss it as a class. And then we'll go back and we'll do the second 7, so that, again, it's not feeling too overwhelming. And then you will start working on your storyboards, okay? So please don't forget to keep in mind the stages of, or as we're doing the stages of development, don't forget to keep in mind our essential question of, at what age can a baby still be born and be okay? So you will notice you have the time frame already written, 1 to 2 weeks, week 3, week 4, and so on. You're going to just be writing down the events that are occurring during that time frame. And you do have pictures over here. Some of them are easier to see than others. However, there will be a picture up on the board, projected on the board that should be a little bit easier for you to see.
Isn't the hard side fixing it at 2 months?
So we're going to get there, okay? So you'll get to see where that, if you're right or wrong on that, okay? Alright, so just a few quick background facts, because I've been getting a lot of these questions on the front board. So remember, we already talked about fertilization, 23 chromosomes from mom and dad. Now, we call the time of pregnancy the gestation period, okay, or the gestation time.
What?
That's, the anatomical words and how they put those fancy words together, like capacitation for mature. So it's about 280 days, okay? Or 40 weeks or 9 months. And again, remember, that's just the time of growing and developing for that baby, or that fetus into a baby. Whoops. And then we can divide the development of that baby into 3 distinct different periods. We can do the ovum development, which is the second that it is conceived. So the second that those 2 nuclei combine to the time that it implants into the uterus. That's about 1 to 2 weeks. Then you'll see we're going to move into embryonic development, and that is from the time that it implants in the uterus to about 2 months, which is about 8 weeks. Okay? And then the last stage of development is going to be fetal development. That's from about 2 months or 8 weeks to birth, which is going to 40 weeks or 9 months. Now I've gotten the question about trimesters a lot. A lot of you are like, oh, well, what does it mean when she's in her first trimester? Doctors will break up a woman's pregnancy into 3 trimesters. That's mostly just for the woman to know the kind of things that she's going to be going through and the kind of things that she's going to need to do during each trimester. But it's not really related exactly to the development, the stages of development for the baby. So you can see there's 3 of them, and it just tells you which weeks are each trimester. And you're not going to be tested on that, but just to give you some background information on why they do that. Alright, so week 1 to 2, here we go. Fertilization has occurred, okay, and we're now going to have implantation. So, can I have a couple of volunteers? Just looking at the picture, what do we see going on here? Yeah.
The egg and sperm are going to combine or something.
Okay, so egg and sperm have combined.
The embryos implanting.
Good. So we see the embryo here, and here's our uterus, and it now looks like it's implanting. Alright? Anybody have any guess as to what this might be?
The cervix. The wall of the uterus.
It's the wall of the uterus, and what does that turn into?
Placenta.
I hear it.
Placenta.
Placenta. Good. So this is the development of the placenta. So those are the main things that are occurring. Fertilization occurs. That's literally like day 1, right? Okay, so again, you should be taking notes on this now, on your chart. The zygote now divides by the process of mitosis. Remember making an exact copy of itself many, many, many times. The placenta, as we just said, is going to form from the wall of the uterus. As Don said, embryo is going to implant itself in the uterus. Whoops, sorry. And those are the main things that are happening during that first and second week of pregnancy. Does mom know she's pregnant yet here?
No.
No, not typically. So this is all going on and mom has no idea.
No morning sickness or nothing.
No morning sickness, nothing like that yet.
Until when do you get like morning sickness?
It It depends, like some women, it depends on the woman, they all experience it at different times. It might be a month into your pregnancy when you feel it, it might be 2 months or so on.
What do you feel?
Nausea in your stomach, so you feel sick to your stomach, often headaches, things like that. So all your hormone levels are changing. Alright, moving into week 3. Just looking at the pictures, anybody have any idea what might be developing during week 3? Please just raise your hand. Do you see something that stands out to you?
Is that a stomach?
Nope, that's actually not a stomach, but good guess. What's neural tube? What do we think is going to develop there?
A spine.
The spinal cord, right? Good. So week 3, this is where mom typically is going to start missing her menstrual flow or her period, right? And that's her first indication that she may be pregnant. Not always. And then yes, the nervous system starts to slowly develop. So already at week 3, just as the mom is finding out that she's pregnant, the nervous system of that embryo is already starting to develop. Okay, it's developing the tubing area where the spinal cord is going to become. Alright, so moving into week 4. Okay. Here we have the heart noticeable. So remember, the heart is going to grow kind of toward the outside, and as the baby develops, it's going to become more enclosed. But this is the beating heart here. So already like a month after conception, you're seeing the heartbeat, or the heartbeat's noticeable. The nervous system becomes more prominent, so meaning it's just more noticeable as well. So you see that here is turning into the spinal cord. Still doesn't have the neurons, right? The sensory neurons, motor neurons that we've talked about. Still doesn't fully have its brain. Starting to build the tissue, but not quite. The embryo kind of has a little tail, and what will that tail turn into?
Like,
The tailbone, which we call the. It does start with a C. No.
certain.
No, it's
Coccyx. Yes, coccyx. Remember, Miss Thorns broke her coccyx.
Ooh,
Yeah, remember earlier in the year?
Oh, you could sit down.
Yeah. And then the embryo now is about 10,000 times larger than what it was when it started out as that one single zygote. That one single cell. And again, guys, I want to remind you, if you do have the questions as we're going, just raise your hand and stop me, and I'm more than happy to answer them. And if I can't get to it, I'll have you write it down and put it on the question board. All right, week 5. Anything standing out to you that you see differently in week 5, Caesar? The shape of the head. The head is getting much bigger, right? Okay. What, Margot? You start to see the eyes, absolutely. It's also the embryo starting to curve up a lot more. So that tail part is starting to curve in a little bit more. Head, as you said, was large. And yes, you're starting to see the eyes. The nose is here, you can kind of see it. The ears you can't see very well from this picture, but typically they're noticeable already at week 5. Okay.
It is larger.
Yeah, so there is a point while we're developing that our head is much larger than our body. Don't worry, we usually proportion out pretty well. Maybe not George Lopez.
He doesn't have the good hair. So he doesn't. Yeah.
Alright, so moving on now to week 6. Anything we notice difference in week 6, baby? Christian?
The arms.
Arms, you're starting to actually notice its arms and fingers. Now we can really see the ears. They are a little lower, they'll get more even out. Okay. What else?
The brain.
The blood vessels. vessels, yes, and these blood vessels are gonna eventually supply what?
The brain.
The brain, the tissues of the brain, so the brain can start developing. Very good. So fingers and toes become present. Okay, it's a lot easier to distinguish that. The skeleton, even though it's kind of got definition, it's still just cartilage. It is not bone yet. So where do we find cartilage on our bodies?
Like, you know.
Ears, end of your nose, right? So that's all the baby is made out of, is the stuff that's made out of the end of your nose and ears.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so he's kind of squishy. So this baby right now has no bones. It's only made out of the cartilage we find in the end of our nose and ears. We have one more stage and then we'll stop for a moment and do a little bit of practice before we move on. Alright, so 2 months. This is the end of the embryonic development. So once it's over with 2 months, it starts now becoming what we call a fetus. So what do we notice here?
Like the whole shape of
Can we raise our hands, please? Oh, that was blinding. Caesar.
You could see like the shape of or the form of the arms more.
Exactly. And why do we think that is? Why do we think we're starting to see the arms shaped more and form more?
The bone development.
Exactly. Okay. The bone is starting to replace the cartilage now. You can see his ribs here too. Or carp. I don't know what it is yet. All body systems have started developing a little bit. So digestive system, urinary system, endocrine system, they've all started, a part of it has at least started developing. The facial features start to really become noticeable and refined. Okay. The baby can respond to touch because they're now, like the sensory neurons and the motor neurons have now developed, started to develop at least. Well, most of the time what they feel is that if they run into the umbilical cord, and so they respond to that by moving their hand. Not quite yet here, but I think we'll get to it. I believe around like month 5. So just to make sure I point this out, this is a good picture for this. This would be the placenta, okay, where the baby gets the nutrients as we discussed. What would that be?
Spinal cord.
Spinal cord, good. The placenta is this big part here. Oh, what's the sac around it? It's just some extra tissue that kind of provides the baby with some extra support. Okay. Alright guys, so we're going to stop, pause for a moment. So if you could please turn to page 2 of your packet. Okay. So you're going to work silently. I'm actually going to take this down to only a minute and a half because people have been working really quickly on this. So you're going to work silently on your own for about a minute and a half. Okay. When you hear that timer go off, then I would like you to compare your answers with the person sitting next to you. Then I'm going to cold call you guys to come up and fill it in. Okay. So again, should be on page 2 underneath where it says chew 1. Right here, it looks like that. You're putting these in order of the stages of development from 1 to 6. So you're not necessarily putting it according to the week. Okay, so you don't have to write week 1, week 2. Just in the order that these things develop in the fetus. Okay? So please work silently for 1.5 minutes. When the timer goes off, you may talk with a partner and share your answers. No one else? Get done? Keep working, please. No. 1 through 6. You on the right one?
Oh yeah, I did it right.
You're good. So again, you don't have to write the weeks and months, just write 1 to 6. statistics of what happens first, number one, and what happens last. That was rather loud. Alright, so timer means go ahead and compare your answers with a partner. Make corrections if you need to make corrections. We'll share out in about 1 minute. You guys agree? Yes. You guys agree? You can learn back from your peers.
4, 6, and 3.
You guys agree? I see a few different answers, so maybe discuss that before we share out. You guys agree or we have a
I got the same message as him.
That's fine. Yeah? Do you guys agree with them? All right, ladies and gentlemen, if I could please have your attention back up front in 3, 2, round down your conversation, 1. Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to randomly call on some people. You're going to do whichever number that I ask you to label. So Carnation, we're going to start with you. Could you please come up and label which one of these will be the first stage of development? No, it's number 1. What would be the very first stage of development? So start with number 1. What's the very first thing that happens to the baby?
Yeah, it's a
Okay, is that correct? Fertilization?